What if I told you Roman Reigns just returned with two of the most dangerous men in his bloodline, and they're calling themselves the New Shield? 10 years ago, Roman walked into WWE with Ambrose and Rollins and redefined domination. But SummerSlam 2025? He rewrote that story, with Jacob Fatu and Zilla Fatu by his side. 3 bloodbound beasts. No words. Just war. This isn't just a faction. It's vengeance in motion. Roman's old empire crumbled. His brothers betrayed him. So, he built a new legacy, one forged in violence, loyalty, and family scars that never healed. And the scariest part? They didn't attack anyone. They just stood there. In black. Unmoving. The arena went silent. Something big is coming. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because when this new Shield moves, the entire WWE roster falls. What if I told you Roman Reigns just returned with two of the most dangerous men in his bloodline, and they're calling themselves the New Shield? No pyro. No tribal war dance. No wise man. Just Roman Reigns, flanked by Jacob Fatu and Zilla Fatu, standing motionless under the SummerSlam lights, cloaked in black. 10 years ago, Roman walked into WWE with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins and changed everything. They called themselves the Shield, not just because they protected justice, but because they were the shield against chaos. They didn't talk. They attacked. They fought the system, then became the system. But at SummerSlam 2025, Roman Reigns didn't just return. He erased the past. He stepped back into the WWE spotlight not to reclaim a throne, but to destroy the notion that he ever needed one. And he didn't do it alone. It happened in the final moments of the SummerSlam main event. Cody Rhodes had just survived a brutal 35-minute war with Solo Sikoa. Blood stained the mat. The arena buzzed with exhaustion. Cody held his championship high, barely able to stand. Then the lights dropped. At first, fans thought it was a technical glitch. Then came the slow pulse of a single spotlight on the entrance ramp. No music. No video package. No voiceover. Just presence. 3 silhouettes emerged from the tunnel, walking in unison. The crowd gasped before commentary even had a chance to speak. Roman Reigns. Jacob Fatu. Zilla Fatu. The former tribal chief didn't crack a smile. He didn't blink. He didn't even acknowledge the roar of the crowd. He just stood there. 3 figures in black. Silent. Unmoving. Staring down the ring like lions eyeing prey they weren't quite ready to tear apart, yet. And that was it. No words. No assault. No finger pointing. No spears. They didn't even step into the ring. They stood at the edge of the ramp, looked Cody Rhodes dead in the eye, and turned their backs to the arena. Then they walked away. If there's one thing Roman Reigns has mastered over his career, it's the art of presence. And this? This wasn't just presence. This was a message wrapped in silence. In a world where every WWE return comes with fireworks and a 12-minute promo, Roman's quiet re-emergence said more than words ever could. For over 1,100 days, he reigned with the weight of an empire. Then his own family fractured it. Now he returns, not to rebuild, but to rewrite. With 2 younger wolves at his flank. Think about it. The Shield, the original one, was formed out of necessity. 3 men with nothing to lose. Brothers in arms, but not by blood. They fought together, won together, and eventually fell apart. Dean Ambrose turned into Jon Moxley and walked out. Seth Rollins stabbed Roman in the back with a steel chair. Roman stayed, and paid the price. Then came the bloodline. At first, a family united. Jey Uso. Jimmy Uso. Solo Sikoa. Paul Heyman. They swore loyalty. They swore purpose. But under pressure? They collapsed. Jey rebelled. Jimmy betrayed. Solo turned cold. Roman watched his empire fall from the inside out. No enemies could conquer him. But his own blood? That was different. And maybe that's the point. Because this time, he didn't come back with brothers. He came back with wolves. Jacob Fatu, unhinged, untouchable, and undefeated in chaos. Zilla Fatu, young, hungry, and built from the wreckage of Umaga's legacy. They're not just muscle. They're symbols. This isn't friendship. This isn't strategy. This is vengeance. Let's be honest. When Roman Reigns vanished from WWE after WrestleMania 40, no one knew what to expect. He wasn't injured. He wasn't fired. He wasn't suspended. He just left. No farewell promo. No exit match. No acknowledgement. The man who demanded everyone acknowledge him walked away without a word. Some fans said he was done. Others whispered about burnout. Some believed he'd return only to reclaim his title. Others hoped he'd stay gone forever. No one predicted this. No one imagined Roman Reigns would re-enter the WWE not as the tribal chief, not as the head of the table, but as the silent tip of a blood-soaked spear aimed at everyone who ever doubted him. He didn't come back to be king. He came back to burn the whole kingdom down. Who are these men? To the casual fan, Jacob and Zilla might seem like background noise. Big, scary cousins. Backup. But to anyone who's been paying attention to wrestling outside of WWE, this moment was years in the making. Jacob Fatu is a monster. Not in kayfabe. In reality. The man went unbeaten in MLW for nearly 3 years. His in-ring work is a hybrid of speed, violence, and absolute disregard for his own body. He doesn't wrestle matches. He ends them. Zilla Fatu is younger. Less seasoned. But he's dangerous in a way few rookies are. He's raw, unfiltered, and has the same fire his father, Umaga, carried. There's something volcanic in him. Something waiting to erupt. These aren't tag-along goons. These are bloodline assassins. Roman didn't recruit them to stand behind him. He brought them to stand with him. The symbolism couldn't be more deliberate. The black gear. The triangle formation. The silent unity. Fans instantly called them the new Shield, but that's not entirely accurate. This isn't about protecting justice. This isn't a babyface comeback. There's no noble cause. No promos about change. No ideals to uphold. This new Shield doesn't fight for what's right. They fight for what's left. After betrayal. After silence. After the fall. This is a rebirth. Not into something cleaner. But into something darker. Something colder. You didn't have to be in the stadium to feel the weight of that moment. Twitter. Reddit. YouTube. The entire internet erupted not with hype, but confusion. Fear. Speculation. Was this a one-night tease? Is Roman Reigns coming back to reclaim his title? Or does he want to tear down everyone who ever crossed him? Because here's the twist, they didn't attack anyone. Not Cody. Not Solo. Not even a single referee. They didn't say a word. And yet they said everything. The crowd, at first electric, fell into a kind of eerie hush. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean indifference. It means fear. Wrestling has always been a theater of exaggeration. Of showdowns. Of speeches. But every so often, something happens that strips all that away and speaks directly to your gut. This was that moment. A man who had everything in WWE, championships, respect, control, lost it all to the people closest to him. He disappeared. He waited. And then returned, not as a leader begging to be followed, but as a force that no one can stop, and no one fully understands. Roman Reigns has always been polarizing. But now? He's inevitable. And that's what makes this moment so terrifying. Because the old Roman Reigns wanted to rule WWE. This one? He wants to ruin it. You think this was just a tease? You think Roman showed up with Jacob and Zilla for a one-time photo op? Think again. WWE doesn't let moments like this happen without a purpose. This isn't a return. This is a slow invasion. A silent siege. The kind of shift that reshapes storylines for years, not weeks. Something massive is brewing. And when the new Shield finally moves, the entire WWE roster falls. Roman Reigns didn't just arrive in WWE as a superstar. He arrived as a weapon. It was November 18, 2012. Survivor Series. CM Punk was about to lose his WWE Championship to Ryback when three men in tactical gear stormed the ring. They weren't announced. They weren't expected. They hit Ryback with a triple powerbomb and laid the foundation for a new era. The Shield was born. Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins. Three men plucked from WWE's developmental system and deployed as chaos incarnate. While the other two had indie credentials, Roman was the outlier. A former football player, a legacy, a guy the company was clearly betting on. He was quiet, intense, and lethal in the ring. The powerhouse. The enforcer. The one who did the talking with his fists. From day one, it was clear, Roman wasn't here to play second fiddle. He was being molded into the future. The crowd didn't love it. But the company didn't care. And neither did he. Over the next year and a half, the Shield tore through the roster. They weren't just winning, they were dominating. Evolution, the Wyatt family, Team Hell No, even John Cena felt their wrath. They were surgical. Relentless. Cohesive. But nothing in WWE stays pure forever. By June 2014, the Shield imploded. Seth Rollins turned heel, cracking a steel chair across Roman's back and aligning with the Authority. Ambrose went rogue. Roman was left standing. The audience was confused. They weren't sure who to root for. But WWE was. They launched Roman into the stratosphere, aiming him straight at the main event. What followed was one of the most controversial pushes in WWE history. Roman Reigns became the guy, whether fans wanted it or not. He won the 2015 Royal Rumble. He main event WrestleMania 31 against Brock Lesnar. And even though Seth Rollins cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase and stole the spotlight, the message was clear, Roman Reigns is our chosen one. But the crowd didn't buy it. They booed him. Mercilessly. They chanted for anyone but him. At times, they even hijacked entire shows just to drown him out. It didn't help that Roman was handed promos that didn't fit him. The writing was wooden. The delivery felt forced. And while he was excelling in the ring, putting on solid matches with Brock, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, and Bray Wyatt, none of it seemed to matter. The fans rejected him. But he didn't back down. Over the next few years, Roman Reigns would weather a storm of criticism few performers have ever endured. He kept showing up. Kept grinding. Kept headlining. WWE was determined to make him the face of the company, and Roman refused to crack under pressure. Then came the moment that changed everything. October 22, 2018. Monday Night Raw. Roman opened the show with a microphone in hand, not as a character, but as a man. He revealed he had been battling leukemia for 11 years, and it had returned. He was relinquishing the Universal Championship and stepping away to fight for his life. The boos stopped. The crowd stood silent. And then, they cheered. That night, Roman Reigns became human in the eyes of the fans. He wasn't a corporate project or a forced hero. He was a man facing a real fight. And he faced it head-on. By February 2019, Roman announced his cancer was in remission. He returned to the ring, and the atmosphere had changed. There was respect. Appreciation. A new chapter. But the company didn't know what to do with him. He floated in the mid-card, feuded with Baron Corbin in one of the most forgettable storylines of his career, and seemed directionless. Then the pandemic hit. The world shut down. WWE went to empty arenas. WrestleMania 36 was held without fans. Roman Reigns was scheduled to face Goldberg for the Universal title, but pulled out of the event due to health concerns. Once again, Roman disappeared. And when he came back? Everything changed. August 2020. SummerSlam had just ended. The Fiend Bray Wyatt had defeated Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship. As the show faded to black, Roman Reigns appeared out of nowhere and wrecked them both. No smile. No pandering. Just violence. A week later, he aligned himself with Paul Heyman. The Tribal Chief era had begun. This was the Roman Reigns fans had been waiting for. Cold. Calculated. Dangerous. He wasn't asking for approval, he was demanding acknowledgement. And for the first time, the crowd gave it to him. He beat the Fiend for the Universal title and never looked back. His reign wasn't about winning. It was about dominance. He smashed and stacked Daniel Bryan and Edge at WrestleMania 37. He took down John Cena at SummerSlam. He humbled Brock Lesnar not once, but twice. And then, he created an empire. The Bloodline. With Jey Uso at his side, and later Jimmy and Solo Sikoa, Roman constructed a faction unlike anything WWE had seen since the days of Evolution. But this wasn't about suits and champagne. This was about family. Control. Fear. Paul Heyman stood beside him, whispering strategies and reminders of history. Roman didn't just lead. He manipulated. He made Jey and Jimmy choose between loyalty and identity. He forced them to bend. To break. For a while, it worked. The Bloodline became a dynasty. Roman held the Universal title for over 1,000 days. Jey and Jimmy held the tag titles. Solo became the enforcer. Every premium live event ended the same way, Roman's hand raised, titles gleaming, challengers broken. But nothing lasts forever. The cracks began with Jey Uso. He started questioning Roman's leadership. Started pushing back. Then Jimmy turned. Then came betrayal, confusion, superkicks, and tears. By the time WrestleMania 40 rolled around, the bloodline was fractured. Cody Rhodes finally finished his story, pinning Roman in the main event and ending the most dominant championship reign of the modern era. After the bell, Roman didn't protest. He didn't grab a mic. He just lay there. Eyes open. Still. As if the fall had knocked something deeper loose. Then he vanished. No tweet. No backstage reports. No return schedule. Roman Reigns went silent. Months passed. WWE moved on. Cody became the face of the company. Seth Rollins kept the World Heavyweight title warm. Solo Sikoa tried to rebuild the bloodline with Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa, forcing fans to ask the question, is Roman Reigns coming back? And if he does, who will stand with him? What no one expected was the answer he brought. Not Rollins. Not Ambrose. Jacob Fatu. Zilla Fatu. He didn't return for redemption. He returned with something far more dangerous in mind. And the man who once wanted to be acknowledged? Now wants to be remembered as the one who burned it all down. Wrestling storylines are built on conflict. But some stories hit harder because they aren't made up, they're rooted in blood. That's what separates the Bloodline saga from any other faction feud in WWE history. It wasn't just about gold. It wasn't just about power. It was about family. Real family. Generations of legacy tangled in pride, pain, and position. To understand why Roman Reigns returned with Jacob and Zilla Fatu, you have to go deeper than the ring. You have to understand the dynasty they come from. The Anoa'i bloodline isn't just a wrestling legacy, it's a warpath. This family didn't just contribute to the industry. They built an entire chapter of it. It began decades ago in American Samoa. A tight-knit family that treated wrestling not just as a business, but as inheritance. The wild Samoans, Afa and Sika, pioneered it in the 70s. Brutal, bare-chested warriors who didn't speak English on camera and didn't need to. They just destroyed everything in their path. They weren't characters. They were threats. From there came a tidal wave of destruction: Yokozuna, Rikishi, Umaga, Rosie, the Usos, Solo Sikoa, and Roman Reigns himself. Every generation hit harder than the last. But something always lingered under the surface. Unity, or control? Respect, or submission? When Roman Reigns turned heel in 2020 and took the mantle of tribal chief, he wasn't just asserting dominance. He was demanding respect that he believed had been his since birth. In his mind, the title wasn't just his career, it was his birthright. Jey Uso resisted at first. He didn't want to fall in line. So Roman beat it into him. Over and over again. Until Jey called him tribal chief on live television with tears in his eyes and bruises on his ribs. Roman didn't win Jey's loyalty. He broke him into it. That's how Roman led the bloodline. Not through speeches. Through psychological warfare. Through fear. Even Paul Heyman, arguably the most powerful mouthpiece in wrestling history, wasn't the leader. He was the mouth that Roman allowed to speak. The bloodline worked because Roman knew exactly when to show mercy and when to strike. But the problem with ruling through fear is simple: people eventually stop fearing and start fighting back. That's what happened. Jimmy Uso got tired of bowing. He cracked Roman with a super kick and walked away. Jey followed him. Solo didn't. Roman, once protected by the loyalty of his family, was suddenly surrounded by betrayal. But this wasn't just storyline drama. It echoed something deeper. In Samoan culture, family is sacred, but leadership must be earned. The moment Roman stopped earning respect and started demanding it, his foundation cracked. He tried to run the bloodline like an empire. But his family wasn't built for empires. They were built for war. The return of Jacob Fatu and Zilla Fatu reawakens the older part of that legacy, the part that came before suits, before titles, before catchphrases. These aren't political players. These are warriors. Descendants of men who headbutt steel and spat in the face of pain. And make no mistake, Jacob and Zilla are not subordinates. They're not lieutenants. They're generals of their own chaos. Let's start with Jacob. He's the son of Sam Fatu, also known as the Tonga Kid. He was trained by Rikishi and rose through the ranks of independent wrestling with a reputation for leaving wreckage wherever he went. In MLW, he wasn't just the champion, he was the reason to watch the show. He didn't cut long promos. He didn't pose for cameras. He just tore through people like he was hunting. His finisher, a twisted moonsault for a 285-pound man, wasn't just physically insane, it was symbolic. He's not just brute force. He's athletic savagery. Jacob doesn't perform. He mauls. Zilla, on the other hand, represents something more personal. He's the son of Umaga. The man WWE once called the Samoan bulldozer. Umaga didn't need words either. He grunted, screamed, painted his face, and left bodies behind. He was an unrelenting machine of violence, silenced only by heart failure in 2009. Zilla was just 14 when his father died. He could have walked away from wrestling. He almost did. He had legal issues, a troubled youth, and a lot of pain to process. But then he started training. Quietly. Methodically. He joined Reality of Wrestling, Booker T's promotion. He didn't demand the spotlight. He earned it. And now, nearly 15 years after losing his father, he returns to WWE not as a son living in the shadow, but as the shadow made real. These two men carry something Roman needs. Not just loyalty. Blood. Not just family. History. Unlike the Usos or Solo, Jacob and Zilla never stood beside Roman during the tribal chief era. They never got manipulated. Never took his orders. They were busy fighting their own wars. Which means their loyalty isn't about trauma or hierarchy. It's about shared scars. Roman stood in front of the world for 4 years, demanding respect and absorbing betrayal. Jacob and Zilla watched it happen from the sidelines. And when Roman fell? They didn't mock him. They didn't pity him. They came for him. Not as a rescue, but as a resurrection. This is no longer the bloodline as we knew it. That chapter is over. The crowns, the speeches, the finger-pointing? Gone. This is a new formation, not made for sports entertainment, but for revenge. Roman built the bloodline to be untouchable. Now he's building something for war. This trio isn't interested in titles or handshakes or ceremonial garlands. They are here to send a message. And the first part of that message is silence. Because when the old bloodline cracked, it made noise. Family members yelling, brawling, betraying each other. It was chaos. But this new formation? They speak with their eyes. With the clothes they wore at SummerSlam, jet black, no logos, no music. With the posture of men who aren't introducing themselves, they're declaring themselves. It's a statement that goes deeper than promos or pop. They're saying, we're not here for theatrics. We're here for retribution. The old Roman wanted acknowledgement. This Roman doesn't care. He already knows who he is. He's not tribal chief. He's war chief. And behind him stand two men who don't follow, they unleash. What comes next won't be a coronation. It will be a campaign. A slow, methodical march through the WWE roster with no mercy, no explanations, and no alliance safe. The new Shield isn't a nickname. It's a warning. Every once in a while, WWE delivers a moment that doesn't just shock the crowd, it stops time. Not because of explosions. Not because of weapons. Not because of some big twist. But because of something simpler. Stillness. That's what happened at SummerSlam 2025. It wasn't billed as Roman Reigns' comeback. WWE didn't drop hints. There were no cryptic promos or social media teases. No grainy training videos or anonymous tip-offs from backstage. There was just a card, and a main event, Cody Rhodes vs. Solo Sikoa for the undisputed WWE Championship. A match that told its own story. Cody, the man who finished his story at WrestleMania 40 by defeating Roman Reigns. Solo, the man left behind, now desperate to carve his own legacy out of the ashes of a fallen empire. The tribal warpath had fractured the family, and tonight was supposed to be Solo's redemption or Cody's coronation. But the real story began after the match ended. Cody won. Barely. The match went over 30 minutes. Both men bled. Both men hit finishers that would have ended matches 6 months ago. But Cody survived. Not just because he had heart, but because he refused to fall again. He stood tall, arm raised, championship shining. And then the lights cut. Not the usual flicker that teases a Bray Wyatt return. Not the glitch effect that fans associate with Uncle Howdy. Just a hard blackout. The entire stadium froze. Phones went up. Commentators went silent. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't chant. They waited. For 10 full seconds, the arena sat in pitch-black silence. Then, one spotlight. Dim, slow. Cold. 3 figures appeared in the entrance tunnel. No music. No graphics. Just presence. the man in the middle stepped forward. Roman Reigns. Flanked on his right by Jacob Fatu, hulking, wild-haired, fists clenched. And on his left by Zilla Fatu, stone-faced, expression unreadable, eyes fixed on the ring. They weren't smiling. They weren't talking. They weren't moving fast. They walked with intent. Roman didn't grab a microphone. Jacob didn't scream. Zilla didn't pound his chest. There were no signature moves. No lights. No production. They just walked halfway down the ramp and stopped. Cody Rhodes stood frozen in the ring. Championship still in his hand. Breathing heavy. Blood drying on his forehead. He didn't run. He didn't posture. He just stared back. Because what do you do when the ghost of the empire you destroyed walks back through the gates? The crowd, already shaken, hit a kind of hush that wrestling rarely hears. It wasn't silence out of boredom. It was awe. Something ancient. Like watching a storm form over calm water. Roman looked straight at Cody. He didn't blink. He didn't move his arms. He didn't adjust his posture. Just locked eyes with the man who ended his reign. Jacob and Zilla didn't glance sideways. They stared directly ahead, as if reading a script only they could see. And then? They turned. Walked back up the ramp. The spotlight followed. And the show ended. Fans didn't cheer. They didn't chant Holy sh*T. They didn't even boo. They just stood there. Because that's what happens when a story turns without warning. When the man who disappeared for nearly a year shows up without warning, without words, and without violence, but makes it clear that his war hasn't ended. In wrestling, silence is often a gimmick. But this? This was weaponized stillness. It forced every fan in the building, and every wrestler watching backstage, to ask one thing: what now? Was Roman challenging Cody? Was he hunting solo? Was this a new version of the Shield? Or was it something else entirely? Traditionally, WWE comebacks follow a pattern. Big music hit. Crowd explodes. Superstar hits the ring, cuts a promo, and sets up a future feud. It's familiar. Expected. Scripted. Roman's return blew that to pieces. He didn't reclaim anything. He didn't ask for acknowledgement. He didn't demand a title shot. He didn't even speak. Because this wasn't a comeback. This was a reveal. Not just of Roman Reigns. But of what he's become. The old Roman needed control. The tribal chief persona was built around verbal domination. He dictated the pace. He controlled his family. He owned every promo. But this Roman? This Roman doesn't negotiate. He doesn't politic. He doesn't need applause. He brings presence. Not persuasion. That's why this moment felt so heavy. It didn't feel like someone returning to be champion again. It felt like someone returning to finish something. As the trio walked away, fans who'd been cheering minutes earlier now stared, stunned. Thousands of phones pointed at the ramp, but no one screamed. The biggest reaction wasn't the sound. It was the pause. The delay in every person's brain trying to process what they just saw. Even the commentators were lost. No cliché lines. No business has just picked up. Just silence. Michael Cole whispered "Oh my God" under his breath. Corey Graves didn't say a word. This wasn't something they could narrate. They had to let it breathe. Because this was a cinematic moment. A shift in tone. The end of one chapter and the promise of something far more violent, far more personal. Let's be clear, Roman Reigns could have returned with fireworks. He could have interrupted a match, speared Cody, raised a mic and told the world he was back to reclaim his throne. Instead, he chose to walk. To say nothing. To simply exist, and let that existence shake the foundation. That's not just storytelling. That's control. Roman doesn't need to chase anymore. Not titles. Not respect. Not even revenge. He's letting people come to him. And in doing so, he's flipped the entire WWE power structure. Because now, everyone, from Cody to Solo to Seth Rollins, is forced to consider this question: if Roman isn't here to be the tribal chief again, what is he here for? Just as important as Roman's return was the way Jacob and Zilla were introduced. No debut match. No surprise attack. No flashy promo packages. They simply walked beside him. That alone made them feel terrifying. You have to understand. The WWE audience has been conditioned to respond to debuts with loud reactions. But Jacob and Zilla didn't ask for cheers. They didn't hit catchphrases. They didn't posture. Their presence was enough. Jacob's body language said it all: tense shoulders, clenched fists, eyes forward. Zilla looked calm, not because he wasn't dangerous, but because he didn't need to show he was. They didn't try to get over. They just stood. And that's what made them real. Cody survived the match of his life. But now he knows something worse is coming. Not because someone told him. Because he felt it. Standing in that ring, with blood on his face and the title in his hands, he looked up that ramp and saw what every WWE superstar will now have to face: the calm before the storm. Roman Reigns is back. He didn't come to fight. He came to wait. And that's more dangerous than any punch, any spear, or any superkick. Because when men like Roman wait, it's never without purpose. And when men like Jacob and Zilla wait beside him, it means they're not wondering if they'll strike. They're just choosing when. To understand the gravity of Roman Reigns returning with Jacob Fatu, you need to forget everything you think you know about muscle and wrestling. Jacob Fatu isn't a sidekick. He isn't an enforcer. He isn't there to fill out a trio. He's an apex predator in his own right. And for years, WWE couldn't get their hands on him. Not because he wasn't talented, but because he was too real. Jacob Fatu is the son of Sam Fatu, also known as the Tonga Kid, a member of the legendary Anoa'i family. That lineage makes him the cousin of Roman Reigns, the Usos, and Solo Sikoa. It also makes him wrestling royalty. But Jacob didn't come through WWE's Performance Center. He didn't debut on NXT in slick gear with camera-ready poses. He didn't come up the corporate way. He came up the hard way. Indies. Grit. Blood. Real fights. Tough crowds. Small gyms. No pyro. And despite that, or maybe because of it, he became one of the most terrifyingly effective wrestlers on the planet. Jacob Fatu made his name in Major League Wrestling, MLW, a smaller promotion without WWE's massive production, but with a deep respect for storytelling and technical work. In MLW, Jacob wasn't just dominant, he was a phenomenon. Jacob Fatu debuted in MLW in 2019 and didn't just win the MLW World Heavyweight Championship, he took it and held it for 819 days. That reign wasn't protected by booking. It was protected by fear. He beat top-tier talent like Tom Lawler, Davey Boy Smith Jr., L.A. Park, and Calvin Tankman. And he didn't just defeat them, he destroyed them. What made him so terrifying wasn't just his size, 6 feet 2 inches, 285 pounds, or his strength. It was his explosiveness. Jacob moves like a cruiserweight but hits like a tank. He throws super kicks like he's 220. He executes moonsaults like a man half his size. He doesn't plod. He charges. And he doesn't slow down. That's not just a nickname. That's a warning. Jacob Fatu's persona is deeply rooted in chaos. He comes to the ring barefoot, shirtless, his hair wild, his eyes glassy. He doesn't smile. He doesn't play for cheers. He snarls. There's a kind of madness in him that feels uncontrolled. But that's the brilliance, every move is calculated. He isn't erratic. He's deliberately wild. You never know when he's going to launch himself from the top rope. Or dive through the ropes. Or snap into a superkick so fast you miss the sound and only see the aftershock. WWE has never had someone quite like Jacob Fatu on the main roster. He's not a clone of Umaga. He's not a version of Rikishi. He's something new. Something unfiltered. There's been talk for years about why WWE didn't bring Jacob Fatu in sooner. Part of it was logistics. His criminal record reportedly made travel and licensing difficult, especially with WWE's international schedule. But part of it, let's be honest, was fear. Not fear of Jacob's past. Fear of what he would do to the system. Jacob isn't moldable. He's not going to read a corporate script and grin on cue. He's not going to let producers water him down or sponsors repackage him. He's real. WWE doesn't always know what to do with real. But Roman Reigns does. Roman didn't bring Jacob in to tone him down. He brought him in to let him loose. When Roman stood atop WWE as the tribal chief, he relied on loyalty. On emotional leverage. On manipulation. With Jacob, he doesn't need any of that. Jacob isn't loyal because he was broken. He's loyal because he chose this. And that makes him far more dangerous. He isn't bound by guilt or obligation. He isn't torn between loyalty and identity. He's here because he wants to be. Roman doesn't need to question his motives. Jacob's motives are Roman's motives: dominate. Crush. Leave no survivors. That's what makes Jacob's SummerSlam entrance so chilling. No weapons. No words. He didn't punch Cody Rhodes. He didn't attack Solo. He didn't even flex. He walked beside Roman. And that walk said more than a 5-minute promo ever could. Because Jacob Fatu doesn't need to introduce himself. He doesn't need to win the crowd. He doesn't even need to wrestle yet. He just needs to be seen. Because once you've seen him, you can't ignore him. Jacob's in-ring style is something WWE fans are not prepared for. It's hybrid violence. A blend of Japanese strong style, Samoan headbutt tradition, and lucha-inspired aerial moves. He's the kind of guy who will run full speed into a lariat, bounce off the ropes, and then moonsault onto you before you blink. And he doesn't do this once a match. He does it constantly. There's no off switch. That's the danger. You're not just facing a powerhouse. You're facing someone who never tires, who never backs up, and who never wants to stop. In a world of rest holds and pacing, Jacob is a hurricane. There's another side to Jacob that makes him deadly. His mind. He's battled demons. Fought his way back from a difficult childhood. Spent time in the streets, behind bars, and in the trenches of indie wrestling. Nothing rattles him. You can't scare him with bright lights. You can't rattle him with insults. You can't break him with mind games. He's seen worse. He's been worse. Which means you can't beat him psychologically. That gives Roman an edge he never had before. With the Usos, there was always doubt. Always emotion. With Jacob? There's only mission. Since SummerSlam, fan reactions have shifted. Those who knew Jacob from MLW immediately recognized the threat. Those who didn't? They've started digging. Watching clips. Sharing footage. The internet is buzzing with the same realization: WWE has just opened the door to something it can't close. Jacob isn't a part-time monster. He's a new standard. And when he finally wrestles? He's not going to debut with a warm-up match. He's going to end someone's career. That's how you announce a storm. Roman is the general. Jacob is the blade. Not a shield. A weapon. WWE's landscape is about to change, permanently. Because when Jacob finally steps in the ring, it won't be to prove himself. It will be to make a statement. And if SummerSlam was the preview, the aftermath will be a massacre. If Jacob Fatu is the storm, Zilla Fatu is the silence before it. Zilla doesn't explode in the same way Jacob does. He doesn't fly off the top rope like a man possessed. He doesn't swing wildly or grunt through promos. He waits. He watches. And when he finally moves, it's devastating. But what makes Zilla different isn't just how he fights. It's why he fights. Because Zilla Fatu's story isn't just about legacy. It's about resurrection. Zilla Fatu was born into pain and promise. His father was Umaga, one of the most dominant forces WWE has ever seen. Umaga was a beast. Built like a wrecking ball, face painted like a war god, he tore through opponents in the mid-2000s without saying a word. His presence was pure power. His thumb spike was more feared than most finishers today. Umaga was a monster, but he was also a father. And in December 2009, that father died of a heart attack. Zilla was 14 years old. The world didn't just lose a WWE star. Zilla lost his hero. And for years, that pain sat inside him like a ticking time bomb. Unlike Roman or the Usos, Zilla didn't immediately follow the wrestling path. He drifted. Ran the streets. Found trouble. Found jail. Zilla himself has been open about his time behind bars. In interviews, he's spoken with raw honesty about the mistakes he made. The anger. The confusion. The shadow of his father's legacy haunting him while he felt like he couldn't live up to it. He wasn't just lost. He was burning. But that kind of fire doesn't die, it redirects. In 2022, after turning his life around, Zilla Fatu did something no one expected. He announced he was entering the wrestling business. And not because it was easy. Because it was right. Zilla didn't go to WWE right away. He didn't lean on the Anoa'i name. He didn't show up expecting handouts. He joined Reality of Wrestling, the Texas-based promotion run by Booker T. A humble choice. But a smart one. Zilla didn't want fame. He wanted discipline. Under Booker T's guidance, Zilla started to shape his body. His technique. His mind. He trained quietly. No Instagram stunts. No viral promos. Just work. Booker T, a two-time WWE Hall of Famer, called Zilla a natural. Said he had the instincts. And most importantly, he had the focus. Because Zilla wasn't wrestling to be famous. He was wrestling to reclaim his bloodline. Zilla isn't built like his father. He's leaner, more measured. But that's what makes him terrifying. He's deliberate. Where Jacob charges, Zilla stalks. Where Roman commands, Zilla listens, until it's time to strike. He's the quiet one in the trio. The youngest. The one most fans underestimate. But if you watch him closely, you'll see it. The stiffness in his posture. The way he always stands just behind Roman's shoulder, like a shadow ready to engulf anyone who steps too close. Zilla doesn't need to yell to be noticed. He just exists differently. It's easy to compare him to Umaga. The lineage is undeniable. But Zilla isn't a carbon copy of his father. He's what happens when the son of a warrior chooses his own weapon. Umaga was raw aggression. Zilla is strategic wrath. He doesn't flail. He waits. And when he explodes, he does so with precision. A kick to the head that comes from nowhere. A spinebuster that echoes across the ring. A stare that says, I don't care about your legacy. I'm here to erase it. Roman Reigns isn't interested in rookies. He doesn't babysit. He doesn't mentor. So why bring in Zilla? Because Zilla represents something Roman lost. Loyalty without trauma. Zilla never bowed to the tribal chief. He never got manipulated by Paul Heyman. He never had to choose between brothers or titles. He came in clean. And chose Roman anyway. That's loyalty you can't buy. That's real power. Zilla's not weighed down by past mistakes. He's not haunted by betrayal. He's focused. And in Roman's eyes, focus is more valuable than experience. At SummerSlam 2025, Zilla made his quiet debut. No mic. No flinch. No nerves. He walked beside Roman and Jacob like he had always belonged. That's what made the moment surreal. He didn't act like a rookie. He acted like a descendant returning to the battlefield. He didn't shout. He didn't play to the crowd. He didn't even break stride. He just stared forward, as if he could already see the destruction to come. That kind of presence can't be taught. It's inherited. Zilla isn't here for spotlight. He's here for blood memory. He knows what WWE took from his family. He knows how quickly they forgot Umaga's legacy when he passed. He knows how easily the business buries the past under whatever's trending. He's not here to remind you who his father was. He's here to finish what his father started. And if that means walking with Roman? If that means standing behind Jacob? So be it. Because in the shadows, Zilla is building something scarier than a comeback. He's building patience. And patience is what kills dynasties. 10 years ago, the Shield kicked down WWE's doors and declared war on the system. 3 men in tactical gear. Triple powerbombs. No nonsense. No apologies. They didn't want your love. They wanted to destroy everything you thought was safe. Roman Reigns. Seth Rollins. Dean Ambrose. The silent muscle. The architect. The lunatic. The Shield changed how WWE presented trios. They didn't feel like a gimmick. They felt real. They fought like brothers. Moved like soldiers. They weren't heels or faces, they were a force. But that was then. This isn't a reunion. This is something new. And far more dangerous. SummerSlam 2025. 3 men. Black clothes. Black boots. Silent formation. It wasn't subtle. It was a visual echo of what the Shield used to be. But the more you looked, the more you realized, this wasn't nostalgia. This was correction. Roman Reigns didn't return with Seth and Dean. He returned with blood. Jacob Fatu. Zilla Fatu. No flak jackets. No entrance music. No Roman fist cock. Just stillness and intensity. The message was clear, the old Shield was built on brotherhood. This one is built on bloodline. The Shield believed in justice. At least, that's what they said. They debuted as mercenaries but quickly became agents of chaos. They feuded with everyone, John Cena, The Authority, the Wyatt family. They stood against control. But this new trio? They don't speak of justice. They don't want to fix anything. They want to erase everything. There's no mission statement. No hashtag. No posturing. The Shield fought because they believed they were right. Roman, Jacob, and Zilla? They fight because you were wrong to forget them. The original Shield was a brotherhood built in battle. They weren't related. They earned their trust match by match. But eventually, they cracked. Seth betrayed. Dean drifted. Roman stood alone. That's the flaw in loyalty built on survival. But this new formation? It's bound by DNA. Family. Legacy. Pain. Jacob and Zilla aren't just replacements. They're real. Real cousins. Real warriors. Real stakes. There's no chair coming. No turn around the corner. Roman doesn't have to watch his back with them. He only has to point. The Shield operated like a SWAT team. Fast. Precise. Coordinated. The new group operates like predators. They don't ambush. They stalk. They don't attack fast. They let you sweat. When the Shield debuted, they hit you before you understood what was happening. This trio? They let you see them coming. And that's the worst part. Because the moment you lock eyes with them, you already know you've lost. The Shield was loud. Music. Roars. Slams. Roman, Jacob, and Zilla arrived in silence. No theme. No pyro. No punchline. That's deliberate. They're not trying to entertain you. They're not asking for respect. They're letting the silence speak. And when silence becomes a strategy, it becomes fear. Because the loudest threats can be escaped. The quiet ones? They're inevitable. When the Shield broke up, fans mourned. When Roman returned with Jacob and Zilla, they didn't cheer. They froze. Because they didn't know if this was a tribute or a threat. And that's the brilliance. This isn't a Shield 2.0. It's a rejection of everything the old Shield stood for. Where the original trio defended their values, this trio has none. Where the old Shield tried to burn the system to rebuild it, this group just wants to burn. Roman walked away from the bloodline. Then he walked back, but with different soldiers. That choice means something. He didn't forgive the Usos. He didn't rescue Solo. He didn't reform the past. He's erasing it. One silent stare at a time. The new Shield isn't about justice. It's about vengeance. And there's no cure for vengeance once it starts moving. In WWE, timing is everything. You don't just show up. You arrive. You don't just attack. You choose your moment. And when Roman Reigns walked down the ramp at SummerSlam 2025, he didn't come back because the card needed star power or because the fans missed him. He came back because the landscape was finally broken enough for someone like him to step into the cracks. This wasn't about ego. It was about opportunity. The WWE locker room is deeper than ever. Cody Rhodes is the face of the company. Seth Rollins holds the other top belt but is barely holding himself together physically. Solo Sikoa has taken the Bloodline name and weaponized it with new recruits, Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa, trying to rebuild what Roman let collapse. Gunther is still dominant, now chasing world title gold instead of defending mid-card belts. Randy Orton's back, older, wiser, more dangerous. And lurking beneath it all are hungry stars who've been waiting for the old guard to move on. Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Ilya Dragunov. It's an era of flux. An era without a true king. Roman saw it. And he didn't just return to reclaim his seat. He came back to flip the table. Solo Sikoa calling himself the head of the bloodline? That wasn't loyalty. That was theft. Roman saw it happening in real time. Solo using his name. Building alliances. Trying to become what Roman once was. But here's the difference. Roman built the bloodline with strategy. Solo built his version with rage. And that's not sustainable. Roman didn't strike immediately. He let it play out. He watched Solo try to lead. Watched the cracks form. Watched him fail to finish Cody at SummerSlam. Then, he returned. Not with fists. With presence. To show everyone that the real bloodline isn't a brand. It's a reckoning. The man who beat Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40 is now the top guy. He's defending his title with grit and style. He's earning it. But that doesn't erase the fact that he took Roman's kingdom. He didn't just beat him. He ended an era. And Roman never said a word about it. No promo. No backstage footage. No tweets. He just vanished. But silence doesn't mean surrender. It means calculation. Roman waited for Cody to build himself up. To feel safe. Then appeared at the peak of Cody's celebration, not to interrupt it, but to remind everyone that it isn't over. Roman's not coming back to chase titles. That was the old game. He's back because he sees what WWE has become. A collection of unstable factions. A list of broken friendships. A parade of title holders who don't hold the room like he used to. It's ripe for takeover. But Roman doesn't want to control it. He wants to ruin it. Because what do you do when the system that betrayed you continues without you? You don't beg to be let back in. You set it on fire. Cody is looking over his shoulder at Solo. Solo is trying to keep his crew together. Rollins is barely holding his body together. The tag division is wide open. The Judgment Day is imploding. LA Knight is feuding with Logan Paul. No one sees the war coming. No one is focused. Except Roman. And when the rest of the roster realizes what's forming, it'll be too late. Roman's return wasn't hyped. It wasn't marketed. It was a reveal, not a promotion. And that's what made it work. Because the best predators don't roar when they enter the forest. They let you walk right into their jaws. Roman didn't pick SummerSlam at random. He chose the night when the entire locker room was distracted, and the crowd was most comfortable. Then he shattered the comfort. Silently. Strategically.